I go through the screenwriting subreddits
Yeah,
just to try to find old things, and I was thinking it'd be great to talk to some of the older recipients, I suppose, of the list, because so many
sure.
the styles of screenplay have changed. I'm just a bigger fan of films from maybe honestly 10 years ago. There just seems to be some sort of difference, and maybe it's just because there's so many. I seem to really enjoy the older scripts from the blacklist more than I do the ones that I'm seeing now. Not to say I don't enjoy some from new ones, but
Sure.
I love to see the trajectory of those early scripts and where all of y'all have ended up in your career. It's really impressive.
I think screenplays are different than they were when the blacklist started. When I was on the blacklist, I think it was the third year of its existence. I never heard of it, and it's different. It was different then than it is now, in that now it's kind of a business. I'm not saying it doesn't have any value, or the people whose scripts are on there aren't fantastic, but now you can submit to the blacklist, you can subscribe, you can be, which is really cool. I think anything that gets your work read has immeasurable value. But when I was on there, as I understand it, it was basically just such a mom and pop operation that it was like they would just cold call like assistants and agents and managers, and like, hey, what screenplays did you like, and then just keep a tally. Is pretty much how that went. But it was a big deal to be on that. I My email blew up with people congratulating me, and it's been I will always have been on the blacklist, and so
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
grateful for that. Yeah, I'm grateful for that.
Where were you at in your career at that point before that had occurred?
Well, that script was called The Dream of the Romans, and it subsequently became known as The Answer Man, which is a movie that I got to write and direct and go to Sundance with Jeff Daniels and Lauren Graham and Tony Hale and all these great people, Kat Dennings. I had written that script, and I used to do stand-up comedy. I did stand-up comedy for a long time, and I had stand-up comedy managers, and I had given them The Dream of the Romans, and they had it for, I don't know, like a year and a half, and they're like, "Yeah, it's really good." That's it. Kevin Messick, who was then a young, up and coming independent producer, was meeting with them, and we wanted someone to run their film arm of what they thought was a burgeoning management company. And they asked him, and as a way to bait him, they're like, "Hey, one of our clients wrote this." That's it, just in the most dismissive fashion possible. And he read it, and he's like, "I don't want to work for you, but I do want to meet this guy." And that was about a year before I was on the blacklist. But when Kevin got that script, 2 weeks later, I was the guy who had written The Dream of the Romans. Like, he, not only did someone have to like it, but they have to know what to do with it.
Sure.
And emails at 2 o'clock in the morning from agents, like just the whole Cinderella vibe of it all. So when I was on the blacklist, we found someone to finance the movie. Kevin and I were on the set in a trailer for Land of the Lost, because Kevin worked for Gary Sanchez, which is Will Ferrell and Adam McKay's company back
Okay.
then. And they're like, you're on the blacklist. And I'm like, all I know is like the House on Un-American Activities Committee. And I'm like, blacklist? Because we just had like a Writers Guild strike
Yeah.
for just like a short window of time. I'm like, I didn't write. I stopped at midnight. I mean, you can see the time. They're like, no, 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 it's not that. It's an awesome thing. But that was like November or December, I think, of 2007. And then January of 2008, we were in pre-production for then The Dream of the Romans.
I was looking for it and I didn't realize it had changed to The Answer Man.
Yeah,
What
well,
is
Magnolia bought it and they didn't like that title. That title actually refers to the last scene, which was
last?
cut
Yep.
by people who are not me. And so it made less sense if you don't have that final monologue.
Yeah, and I like that final monologue. Talking about craft for a second, I saw it on your website. Jeff Daniels talked about how smartly written it was. The dialogue is really good. It's really quippy and snappy. The way the jokes hit, they were so perfectly timed. And before I knew Jeff Daniels was in the movie, I could almost see Jeff Daniels delivering those lines. He's like the
Yeah,
perfect character for him.
he is the perfect. Yeah, it's perfect for him.
He was great. So where did you learn dialogue? Because it was different. I enjoyed it. It's hilarious.
One, I think it's just something I kind of have an ear for. I've also read, like I'm an avid reader of just fiction, right? Like I'm not some intellectual person. I just love really good stories. I've read a lot, and again, I think I just have like an ear for it, but also having done 10 years of stand-up comedy, you have to hone the ability to make something sound conversational while not actually being the way that people talk. So there's a kind of refinement process that takes place, because in real life people say, and yeah, I don't know, so I thought we could, like, you can't talk like that, and you certainly can't write like that. It make On the page it looks like that person isn't smart and doesn't have a point of view, which can be a character perspective, but it's not what we're looking for with dialogue. I think it was John Truby, the screenwriter, who said that, or maybe it was me. It was somebody, I don't know. It's just in there somewhere. But like, dialogue only does one of two things: either reveals more about character or moves the story forward.
Sure.
And there isn't a third thing. And then the third part of my answer to your question is that one of the things that I learned from doing stand-up comedy is don't tell a story with jokes. Use jokes to tell a story. So like in the best comedy writing, it's funny and it moves the story forward. And if you have clever, quippy, sarcastic people like you have in that screenplay, they not only have to hit the ball back, but it has to move the story forward. How to do that, one of the ways to do that is, like, if you watch, it's a great example, like, watch any old episode of Frasier, like
Okay.
probably like the smartest, briskest, if that's a word,
Close to it.
um yeah, repartee ever, and you're either setting up the joke or you're paying off the setup, and that's kind of it. That's a different form, so like that's a sitcom form, but like everything is either like a setup or a payoff, and then to have that as the foundation, but then that's moving the story forward. It takes a lot of effort.
I can tell. I love comedy, obviously. I mean, I like smart comedy. Yours felt very, very human and grounded. And I could tell that in each joke, there was almost like a tiny little story arc within the joke and the punchline. It was very cool to see. I saw you shared something on your personal Instagram about sobriety, and I noticed
Yep.
that thread in the film.
Yeah.
Was that something that you really, that is that a struggle that you kind of incorporated into the film? Because I thought it was
Kind of, I got sober May 28th of 2000, and I didn't even start writing until after I got sober,
okay.
or considering being a writer. And I had written a couple of things, and they didn't go anywhere. I really just thought I was writing. I was practicing still, to be honest. Like, I was practicing, like, writing screenplays. And I just thought that I wrote a screenplay that my family would like. Like, it is so inspired by, Arlen Faber is like a movie version of my father, who was this like genius who could help everybody but himself. Like, he
Okay.
was the guy you would go to for a question like, what's the Latin derivation of this word? Or like, what is dreamtime in the Aboriginal people? He knows everything, but then he makes terrible decisions in his own life, like disastrous decisions. My sister was the inspiration for the Lauren Graham character, Elizabeth, the chiropractor, who had a kid, has a kid, but is like a nurse to a perfectly healthy patient.
Yeah.
Like, there has to be a problem so that she knows what she's doing. And I'd been sober for a couple of years when I wrote that. I never went to rehab, but I like one of the things that I like so much about talking about sobriety or religion or anything is it's like a shortcut to addressing like the critical nature of the human experience.
Yeah.
In the Dream of the Romans, like, it's all about fathers and sons, which a lot of my work is. Arlen Faber, Jeff Daniels' character, has like a father who has died, and but still has like a contentious relationship with that event. Is there a heavenly father? What's up with that? I don't know. I'm not even a Christian, right? I'm trying to really explore these ideas. Chris, the alcoholic in the story, he has a relationship with a father who's still drinking that he loves. Lauren Graham's character, that kid's dad left, and
Hmm.
the thing that I think is cool for me, because I've written about people having struggles with sobriety or anything in that arena a couple of times, isn't because I'm interested in sobriety, but I love coming in contact with people who need answers to these questions right now. Like, I need help, and it has to be right this minute,
Yeah.
not later. So the sort of desperation, I think, is what I find interesting, because really, like, me being like a sober alcoholic is about like the 28th thing that's interesting about me. because it doesn't tell you who I am.
Sure.
It's like saying, well, I have brown eyes. Like, well, who
A lot of
cares?
people do.
Yeah, we do. And I think
We, yeah.
that's what's really important.
My mom has always struggled with that. And it's one of those things where the ups and downs of it, we've certainly
Yep.
experienced the highs and the lows, but she would take me to her AA meetings when I was 11 and 12 years old. That's where I learned to play basketball, was outside of her AA meetings. So
Fantastic.
yeah, I just did a short film. It hinges around the influence of alcohol in a relationship between a daughter and a mother. So you were talking about spirituality, and I was curious, like, does this guy believe in serendipity? Because there were so many things in the screenplay that I just could not ignore. I loved Arlen's Monsters,
I
which
have
was
most of those models here in my house still.
I was going to tell you
Yeah.
too. The first thing I thought of, there is a book that you might enjoy. It's called Wasteland by W. Scott Poole, and it is about the Great War and the way the Great War shaped modern horror. But I kept seeing all these parallels, and it was like, I'm going to ask him if he believes in serendipity.
I do. Well, I don't even think of it as serendipity. Like my higher power, honestly, dude, is the force. That makes the most sense to me. Like that, that unites us and binds us. It seems to me, my experience informs this opinion, which is like, I believe that there's just like there's a connectedness, like, I mean, this isn't a discovery. I'm not saying anything new, but it feels very important to me. And when I am aligned with that, right? Like when I am in the current and the flow of things, then things seem to happen.
Sure, absolutely.
When I'm not, when I'm just standing on the shore watching life go by, I get what that guy gets. I get to be right. I get to be separate, apart from like all these things, which may have a momentary intoxicating effect, but ultimately cut me off from anything and everything that's important. The monsters are not in the movie, the monsters are not like a metaphor. I packed that thing, dude, with so many personal things and inside jokes. And again, stuff I thought that my family would like. And somehow, in making it that personal, it made it universal. He pulls out a Hydra in the beginning from Jason and the Argonauts. Rad. Because when I was 10, my dad was like, hey, I'm going to run some errands. You want to come with me? And it was like after dinner. I'm like, yeah, where are we going? And went to the drive-in and he surprised me. It was Jason and the Argonauts.
That's awesome.
So that's why it's there. It's there because I've loved monsters my whole life. It's there because I think if you are a man of, I was going to say of value, but like all the men that I value have held on to those critical pieces of childhood. Like I'm still 10 in here, dude, right?
Yeah,
Like my
yeah,
body just got older and I have a lot of experience, but I saw Godzilla -1 3 times in the theater because it's completely fucking awesome.
yeah.
Like, because it is.
I've seen the first hour of -1, and my friend Miguel that we work with, he's a cinematographer for some of the stuff we work. He loves -1. He's so
Dude, you
crazy
seem
about it.
really good at seeing like an hour of movies.
I
It's
know
that
this is
second hour that you really gotta like, you
it's
really gotta get
awful.
over that hump.
We've got a house full of kids, and so I'm always
Sure.
having to pause things. So typically, if I'm watching a movie, it's going to be late at night, which is fine, and get everybody down for sleep, and
100%.
and
That's my resting time. Yeah. Just like
yeah, yeah,
over there on the couch. It's just like, yeah, let's watch videos about music or philosophy or what's going on in space or monsters. Or the other night, I was like, you know what? Like, what vibe do I want? Like, how do I want to feel? And I'm like, oh, I want that Super 8 feeling. So I
oh,
watched Super 8.
great film, so
So
fun.
good, man. Yep.
I think that's his greatest use of the lens flare.
Yeah, I agree.
You're talking about philosophy and things. You made so many references to philosophy in The Dream of the Romans. And
Hmm.
I'm reading this one right now by Henri Bergson, The Creative
Cool.
Mind, the introduction to metaphysics. And so
Cool,
I
cool.
love themes like that in films. That's why one of the last guests I interviewed, he just finished up a film with Liam Neeson called The Mongoose. And we talked about Michael Clayton. Michael Clayton's one of my favorite films.
Come
Um,
on.
how can you not love it?
I'm like, sometimes I'm sorry that I read it. If you're a writer and you want to read Michael Clayton, you should be on the first floor.
Yeah.
So when you jump out the window, like nothing, you won't really get hurt. I remember seeing that. I went to see that in the theater by myself, and my popcorn, like a bucket of Diet Coke, and it starts and it's Tom Wilkinson's monologue, and it's like 90 seconds into that, and I was like, oh my God, I'll never write this well. Like
Yeah.
as like a fact, like this truth landed on me that I'll never write like that. Yeah, Michael Clayton. The two best screenplays the last 20 years for me produced are Michael Clayton and Silver Linings Playbook. Um, Absolutely works of art,
Yeah, David O.
perfection.
Russell's he's something. So those are
Yeah.
I love Silver Linings Playbook. I never read the script. When you mention philosophy, is it if you're looking for something, what are you typically watching when it comes to the sort of philosophical
Oh,
realm?
like that. I mean, again, that makes me sound like high-minded or like that I graduated from college, and neither one of those things are true. I have a niggling suspicion that this might not be real. In Long Day's Journey into Night by Eugene O'Neill, the play, there's a line in there where this guy is talking, this son, Edmund Tyrone, is talking about his adventures at sea and how magical those moments are, where it's like maybe you've had this, where you're just like you're driving in your car and all of a sudden it just hits you. I can be anything that I want to be, and everything else is a lie that I told. Like there's this feels like this sort of epiphany, right? And then like it
Yeah.
just sort of dissipates. I think that that's real. And in Long Day's Journey Tonight, he says, it's as if the veil of things as they seem is drawn back by an unseen hand. And for a second, you see. And seeing the secret are the secret. And that has informed a lot of my life.
Yeah.
That perspective said so beautifully by Eugene O'Neill. So when we talk about philosophy, I kind of want to know. I'm kind of interested in the genesis or the jumping off point for I don't know. I guess the science of being a person. I think there's something so cool about the Stoics. Marcus Aurelius and Seneca, like just sort of foregoing the emotional life for a second in order to achieve some goal. I'm a big fan of A Course in Miracles. It's like an amazing book with a terrible title. I read Conversations with God, which is sort of the inspiration for the book that Jeff Daniels character
Yeah.
writes. I found God, if you can say that, in that book to be a little too glib for me, and a little too like, I don't know, why don't you figure it out? And I'm like, I don't know. There's something that's going on. But part of what makes it valuable is its mysteriousness, I think, is the mystery itself. Like the last thing that we need is for me to figure it out, right? Because they'll take it apart and like, well, this is the part that I need, and this is the part I don't need, and this is the part, it's like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's all such a miracle, man. I don't know how you cannot think about it constantly, which is in the Dream of the Romans. It's like the only two questions that matter really are, is there a God and what happens when you die? So for a guy to have answered those sort of in a way that satisfied people or gave them like some kind of North Star, I felt had value. But it doesn't mean that you're a good person. Picasso, not a great guy. So what?
Yeah.
Like that's a separate issue from like what he can contribute. I hear that Mother Teresa was a raging bitch. I get that because I think that's I think you'd have to be hard as nails to get that much done in Calcutta.
Yeah, for sure.
I think where our desperation and our desire meet is the cutting edge of our humanity. And I'm interested in keeping characters at that place for as long as possible. What a
Yeah.
long-winded answer to a
No,
fairly straightforward question.
in one sense it's easy to answer, but one of the lessons I teach my kids is it's not the thing, it's everything around the thing. And for them,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
they have no idea what that means. And so I have to kind of unpack that and say, listen,
Yeah,
the world is not happening to you, you're happening to the world. You're only ever in relationship to anything ever. There's no you without a relationship to this world. There's no way in which you can be
yeah,
defined without everything else around you. And so you have to really learn how to develop this sort of broad respect, no matter how far your imagination takes you, to make the attempt at encompassing all of that, like you said, from the Stoic perspective, just sort of setting your emotions aside for just a little bit and grounding yourself in mystery and allowing yourself to be very comfortable with that. You can then kind of reinstall those emotions with that new framework, and the world, it just starts coming to you. And you get into that flow state. Flow
mm-hmm,
states are very real. Csikszentmihalyi, he wrote the book Flow States and Creativity. And there's so much evidence and science to support that a flow state for whatever it is a very real thing. I have a religious philosophical perspective. I certainly don't
Hmm.
push it on anybody, but it does seem to feel like there is something behind or within reality that you can tap into. That to give my own long-winded answer, that's why I'm back on track with my writing, because I started when I was in
Hmm.
my 20s, and I sort of felt like maybe the maybe modern society, I don't know, I don't want to sound pretentious. It's just that I felt
You're
like I
just
needed to,
talking.
yeah, I felt like I needed to do something in order to present myself as one thing that I wasn't connected to, and it felt very much like I was in Plato's cave, casting
Watching,
shadows.
yeah,
Yeah.
watching the shadows on the wall.
And I,
I like how in one version of that, in one interpretation of that translation, the dude comes in from like being outside, right? Where it's like there's giraffes and mangoes, and they kill him.
yeah, yeah. And I think that's what makes that story so interesting is whether biblically or with Greek mythology, they all those stories do seem to track so well with your experience and reality. And it's going back that's really difficult. It's suspending the disbelief for a little bit. If you can suspend that disbelief for just a moment, you do begin to realize it's just me. You can choose to see one side or the other, and as soon as you fundamentally believe that, it's strange, but going into back into the cave to convince other people that it's worth doing is really difficult.
Well,
Difficult.
this is one of the reasons that I write. Like what I really like doing is directing and working with actors. But you need a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of people involved to do that. And so I write, and also I write because if I don't get the stories out, they don't leave me alone. Is the shortest way to say that. But the goal with that isn't always to like get this movie made or make money. I am really trying to communicate something. I have thoughts and I have feelings and I don't want to think them alone and I don't want to feel them alone. I want you to feel them too. I want to diminish the distance between the two of us, but not by moving closer to you,
Sure.
by bringing you closer to me. And the degree to which I have a story that can seduce you into participation is the degree to which I'm successful in getting across a thing that I think or that I feel. And it's not always, it doesn't have to be important. Well, it's important to me.
Mhm.
And even if I get hired to write something, it's not like my idea. Like with Unstoppable, like they had a couple of guys that took a crack at that script before I got there, and then they hired William Goldenberg, the editor, to direct it, and he wanted to go in a different direction. So he hires me, and I don't care about wrestling, and I don't care how many limbs you have because that doesn't tell me who you are. So like for me, the story can't be about that, and I have to find my way in to fall in love with that character so that I can be my best, so that I am once again trying to diminish the distance between us by bringing you closer to me, seducing you with this story so that you feel the things that I now feel that I'm trying to use a story to communicate.
So what are you right now? What are you working on now that that's done? What's on the
Um,
horizons?
so I recently wrote a script called A Bright and Guilty Place, which was born from me reading 5 years of like news stories about Los Angeles. I lived in California my whole life, and we're always building some train from like LA to Northern California that no one wants. I'm from Northern California. Why would I take a train? I'm just going to drive there. Why would I do that? Billions of dollars for homelessness. Where'd it go? I don't know. Now we're going to pay $2 million to have someone audit that
Yeah.
and figure it out. The only city in the country that's more corrupt than Los Angeles is Chicago.
Hmm.
So like everyone tells us all the time, like, oh, you're the fourth, fifth largest economy in the world. Where is that?
Yeah.
I was interested in that grift. And I followed a lot of news stories, a lot of fraud, a lot of councilmen going to jail. But who cares about that? That's what newspapers are for. So how can this be interesting? And so I have a detective who's like basically searching for his sister. And you know what it's most like, dude? The script, if I can just use these two examples, it's most like Michael Clayton and 3 Days of the Condor. That's really what it is.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool.
And that is being produced by Hyperobject. So that's Adam McKay, Kevin Messick. So The Big Short, Vice, Don't Look Up, Succession. They're making that movie, and it's at William Morris just last week. WME, and it was the must read over the weekend. And this week they're going to come to Kevin and I with like a list of directors.
Man, that's all those films, Succession and good grief, Big Short. That's those are they're having a heyday with some films right now, or at least some projects. That's really exciting, man. Very cool. What are do you have any hopes? I mean, is it are you just you're just kind of along for the ride, like cast
I'm not
ideas,
along for the
anything like
ride.
that?
I'm like, yeah, I'm not in a wagon attached to the back. I will be a producer on that movie, and Kevin and I go way back, and he and Adam and I see that story in a very similar way tonally. I really love I love the 1970s conspiratorial, like almost nihilistic films, you know, like All the President's Men, Three Days of the Condor, Parallax View, The
I was about to say
Conversation.
that.
I love all that stuff.
Yeah, the Parallax View is one of my favorite films.
Oh, it's a great movie. So we will, the three of us, and along with the William Morris agents, will come up with like the best combination. We're in the early stages. We're just trying to build the best version of this that we can. I'm in a very enviable position, and I'm very happy to be here. And then I wrote another one that they also like, and we'll see what happens with that. It's like it's like a supernatural western.
Oh, okay.
God, I worked hard on that. Yeah.
What inspired that? I wrote a spec years ago called Predominant, and
Hmm.
it was a
Cool.
Western frontier film about Bigfoot. It was really weird and unique, and I would love to revisit that. After I saw Bone Tomahawk, I thought Westerns and horrors and supernatural stuff is not actually something that's explored very often, and I think that there's a lot of sort of historical significance, a lot of old ghosts that you might could drum up.
Yeah, mine takes place in 1888 in a mining camp in Montana.
Cool.
Um, yeah, I know a lot about coal mining now, buddy.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, and copper mining and what it's like to live back then and how people spoke. And I have to become kind of a expert if I can on whatever I'm working on. But yeah, you know, aside from the genre, right? Like whether it's that Western that I wrote called As the Crow Flies, or A Bright and Guilty Place, or The Dream of the Romans, then The Answer Man, or Unstoppable, like a couple of things don't change for me. And one of them is that I approach every story the same way, which is every story is a love story, or I don't care. It gives me something to care about and something to follow, right?
Yeah.
I don't know about you, man, but for me, life is a felt experience. It is all feelings all the time. Like, God, that salmon was delicious. Feelings, right? Like, oh, I can't wait to see Alien Earth. Oh my God. Oh my God. Feelings.
Yep.
Seriously, it's going to be 95 degrees today. Are you joking? Feelings all the time, all the time. I don't lose sight of that. And I know that I'm writing for a reader. Like I know that it's not a movie. Like I'm writing for a reader, and I need to make the reader feel something, and they can only feel what the characters feel first. So I'm just trying to put as much emotional life into the story as humanly possible, regardless of the genre.
The same advice was given to me the other day about you're not writing for an audience, you're writing for a reader. I think maybe part of me, that's why here recently some of my writing isn't clicking. I'm getting into drafts and I'm getting 50, 60 pages in and I'm digging it and I'm liking it. But from somebody who would really like to direct things, I get too enamored with camera and blocking and all of these things. And I'm trying to step back and say, okay, how can I build out and establish the nature of the scene and move on through it so that I can start finding a flow?
Well, you know how people talk about we're having different hats.
Yeah.
What they fail to point out is you can only wear one hat at a time. And I've directed things that I've written. I have watched things be directed that I've written. I've been a staff writer on a TV show and written things and watched, like, what is my job now? So like once I'm done writing it, it's all written. Like with The Bright and Guilty Place. There will be notes from people. That's fine. But now like they kind of don't need me to be a writer anymore. I am the keeper of the story. I'm the one who knows the most, and I can answer any question that you have. But now we're trying to produce a thing, right? We're trying to produce a result. So now it's not about fighting for this or fighting for that or anything. It's about being a producer. It's about like, which ultimately is how can I be most helpful to the most people possible to make the greatest movie that they can? Like, so it's really, it becomes, it may sound kind of cloying or saccharine to some people, but for me, it's life-saving. It's about service.
Sure, absolutely.
Like, you got to know when you're Ringo. And when we're on a set, I'm definitely Ringo. And if I'm writing for a reader, I don't put, we dolly on and then the slow push in to reveal. I mean, I'll do that a little bit if I need for you to pay attention to something. Like, I need you to see something that's important and not forget it. It'll say like close on or angle on, but nobody reads a screenplay to learn anything. No one goes to movies to learn anything. Life's really short. They want a good story. That's kind of it.
I hear so many times people will tell you do's and don'ts for what are some things that maybe people put too much emphasis on that they shouldn't.
What conventions does it break? Just in the way that the document itself is structured on the page?
It's sort of prosy, but not too prosy.
Uh,
Maybe that's really the better question is when is too much prose enough? You're not trying to tell somebody how to feel, you're trying to show somebody something that they can feel something with.
right, right, right.
But I've also seen things where a little bit of prose here and there assists me in the mood of the scene, and sometimes it feels like I should do that.
Yeah, I do that. I'm, less so with The Dream of the Romans because I wrote that 20 years ago. So, like, the things that I write now, when I read those, I can tell that I have learned a lot about writing in the interim and how to use words to express time, place, dialogue, description, setting. But I think that most people, exceptions, there are exceptions to the rule, but exceptions don't make good rules. So I think that it's been my experience that I teach screenwriting once a year because that's enough. And most people are looking to be the exception so that they don't have to learn the rules or follow them. And, I read the screenplay for True Grit, the one that the Coen brothers did. And damn, it's just, I've never read anything like that. It is like, there's not even page numbers. It's like, it's written like a letter. I don't know. It's a completely unique document. And that's cool. The Coen brothers absolutely know how to tell a story. So, like, are the beats of the story where they need to be, regardless of how that's presented? So, like, Memento is a really good example, right? So, Memento moves backward, but if you can just divorce yourself from the idea of time, like, the same beats that you need, there's still a midpoint, right? There's still a all is lost moment, like in the place that moment usually is. I like structure. I like form. I mean, the challenge for me is like, how can I tell a different or better story using, how can I paint within the lines?
Sure.
So I think that's, should I ever leave that, which I have at times, right? Like, either in a scene or at least in a premise. Like, what if it was organized like this? I can do that knowing that I have some, like, a solid foundation to return to. Like, I absolutely know after 25 years, 24 years, and like 21 screenplays, like, I pretty much got a pretty good idea how screenplays are working. Yeah, you can jump as high as you want, but you're always going to land on the earth. And I kind of need for the structure of script to be the earth upon which my feet rest.
So, speaking on structure, I know we kind of opened on the idea of changes. What do you notice that's different about films? And I'm just asking your completely subjective opinion on this.
Mm-hmm.
In your opinion, why is it that somebody like myself would say, I just really like older movies better? Is it because there is more of an adherence to that structure that we all kind of know and love to find in films? And maybe people are trying to get away from that now?
I think it's a lot of things. I think that the old movies that you like are the ones that were good enough to survive.
Okay.
Like, my wife and I just watched The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance um,
My dad loves
the
that
other
movie.
night.
Loves
Dude, great.
it.
Super dated, but like good enough to survive, right? Good enough for Prime Video or wherever I got it from to go like, oh, we should include this because it has value,
Sure.
even though it's 63 years old, 64 years old. So people are like, oh, I love foreign films. You love the films that were so good that it doesn't matter that they were in another language and they were
Yeah.
good enough to make it over here. That's what you love. Because I could give you like a really shitty film in Russian and you wouldn't love that. So there's that. So the old movies, we like the ones that were good enough to last. I think what's happened fundamentally, and I was watching a thing on YouTube about this, like, I don't know, like a month ago. They're like, why is Michael Clayton so great? anything about Michael Clayton. You have my full attention. But it was like the last time that we had, one of the last few times, like a serious adult 20 to 30 million dollar mature grown up movie that frankly didn't do that great.
Yeah.
Warner Brothers hung on to it for a while. They just like, well, we're going to release it next year. Whereas like in the 70s and the 80s, when I was a kid, that was the staple, man. I remember going to see The Verdict in like 1982. Have you ever seen that movie?
I've never seen The Verdict.
Bro,
Really? Gosh.
get involved in that. Yeah.
Okay, will
That's
do.
Sidney Lumet directing. That's Paul Newman giving the best performance of his life in a lifetime of never having given a bad performance. It's James Mason. It's Charlotte Rampling. It's Jack Warden. It's screenplay by young David Mamet.
Holy cow. I
It's
didn't know
what you're
Mammoth
looking
was.
for. So there's that, right? So we've gotten away from that because of the internet, because of your ability to have a podcast, to interview people, right? Because of everyone's. So now we have to fight through the noise, right? Now we have to fight for attention. Now we have to be the loudest, the somethingist as an individual, as someone who's trying to be an influencer, as a movie, as a TV show. And so it's like if there's only 4 or 5 places where you could eat, studios, then they can take chances. Like, yeah, we switched this up on the menu today, and now you're going to have this. If there's 1,000 places,
Hmm.
you're pretty much going to be selling hamburgers.
Yeah.
You're pretty much going to be selling tacos. So, like, I think that movies have gotten, they might have gotten worse. I know that there's more of them, so there is therefore more of them for us to judge. But there is a moment at which they became
Yeah.
content, and it they look like shit for the most part. They really do.
There's a few things we've touched on over the last 20 minutes about service and characters and having something to care about. The content thing really strikes me. You do have to productize yourself. And that is my one concern that I have about doing this podcast is I don't want to be in a sea of noise, although I know I'm going to be. And maybe that is ultimately what makes films feel so different now is that that's just what they are. It's like they're no longer these cultural representations so much as they are, oh, here's
Yeah.
a little bit of this, here's a little bit of that. We kind of put some effort into here and here to get it out like a cheap toy on a shelf at Walmart.
For sure, when they were making westerns back in the 30s and 40s, they were just cranking them out, and they weren't good, and most of them were garbage, right? So
Yeah,
like, there has always been, you need to make money,
sure.
right? Like, it is about making money, which I understand because I also need money, right? Like, I have to go to the store, I have to put gas in my car, gas that is way more expensive than it is in Alabama, by the way.
Oh God.
Um,
Oh, it
um,
scares me.
I can't actually get super involved with how like complex the world is at any given moment. Like, I'm not emotionally qualified for it.
Yeah.
I don't handle it well. I start to think about like too many things. It doesn't really help me, because at the end of the day, what happens is I'm in a room by myself and I'm looking at my monitor and I'm trying to coming up with the best way to accomplish the goal of this scene. Yeah, I'm a clockmaker. Like, I'm just trying to make like this gear be in this part to do that thing. And I'm and also in terms of like the world and making movies, like, it's always been hard and it always will be hard, and the reasons why just change. And so like, I too lament a time that was more understandable in terms of the process. But I don't live in that world, and I still have all the same feelings that people had 100 years ago when they wanted to tell a story. So like, I'm not going to adapt. I'm just going to focus on what I can do. Back to the spiritual element of it, is I think the answer is always a bigger, softer heart. I think my job is to be excellent. No, I'm not saying that I am excellent, but I think that like, I just have to focus on keeping my side of the street clean. I just have to focus on doing like what it is that I'm good at to the best of my ability. And then whatever happens, happens. And usually nothing happens. A lot of times nothing happens. but it all starts with me being excellent. And I really do believe that it starts with a script. Like, it doesn't matter who you are, bro. It doesn't matter where you live. If you write something that people respond to, that has value, because nothing can happen without a script that checks some box. Either like, yeah, we wanted something with robots and World War One planes, so this is great. Like, that's a box check. Or also, we just wanted something excellent that actors would like.
Yeah,
Just be excellent. Just start making things, man. I just want to make things.
I agree. I'm like, let's get out, even if it's just a scene here and there. Just start
Yeah,
perfecting. I say perfecting, getting just,
just doing
polishing
it,
really. Yeah. But
learning.
I will say the plus side about the internet is that before I
Yeah,
had the ability to do this, that whole world felt extremely mystified to me. And I think a lot of people probably struggle with that sometimes, similar to the blacklist, where right now, if you get on a subreddit, most screenwriters feel like the metric for success in their careers, if they make a higher score on the blacklist. I myself have never been interested in that because I know it's more about the relationships you're willing to build and maintain over the course of 10 to 30 years, as opposed to a nine that you might get on a blacklist script.
I know Alex Convery, who wrote Air,
Okay, yeah.
Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, and I think that was number one on the blacklist the year that script was on there. But he had been on the blacklist twice before, and was working at something like as a salesman on the phone. Like, being on the blacklist is something unto itself, right? Like, you were on the blacklist, and that's cool. It does not necessarily translate to success.
Yeah.
He was just so he had given up. He had basically given up writing. I mean, you've been on the blacklist twice and nothing happens. Kind of, that doesn't make any sense. That's not what I was told the rules were.
Yeah,
And
so
then it's the pandemic, and he's watching The Last Dance.
hmm.
Michael Jordan thing was so good, and he's like, you know what? I think this would make a really good script.
And it is a
There you
good
go.
script. Air's
It is a
Air's a
good
good
script.
script. What is the hardest part for you about writing? I mean, everybody seems to say like second act, things like that. What is the hardest? Where do
Mm.
you find yourself getting in the weeds?
That's evolved and changed as I've evolved and changed over the years. I used to know a lot less about structure, and so that was hard. I used to just be really good at dialogue, and so that was easy. But then, like, what's that scene about? Like, it's just clever people being clever.
Yeah.
I think I can tell you it was hardest this last time with the script that is now out in the world and popular. By popular, I mean fancy people who can make things happen like it.
Yeah.
Was the self doubt.
Okay.
I'd never written anything that ambitious before. It's not witty. I've never written anything that had to do with issues that are that complex and far reaching. And I just, for some reason, when I wrote the first draft of that last summer, I hated everything I was doing. And all screenplays that I write, like, I do the same amount of work beforehand. Like, it is a shocking amount of research, of like typing treatments, of like, all this getting winnowed down to become cards, right, that represent the story that I know behind each card. And like, then now we're ready to write. Writing is the last thing. It's the reward for all the work that has gone before. It's supposed to be the fun part, and it wasn't fun. It was terrible. And I just felt like I was Sisyphus, just shoving a rock uphill all the time. It's all I was doing, and just roll down, shove it up, roll down. And then I went back and read it like a few months later, and I was like, well, I think I know what to do with this. This isn't so bad. What's the what's wrong with me that I can't see this for what it is? Or at the time I couldn't see it for what it could be. Like, so what's difficult these days, at least on that one, was me.
Gotcha.
Screenplays, they don't change. You can hold up broadcast news and A Bright and Guilty Place, and from a distance they look like the same thing. So it's my relationship to my creativity that proved to be difficult with that one. And now I'm really proud of that one. I can't do better than that. That's me at my best. And the next one I feel really good about as well, the Western. So like, I have some confidence back, and that allows me to write with more freedom. So really, to circle back to what we're talking about, I think like in the first 15 minutes, yeah, it kind of reminds me of an A.S. Nin's quote, right? Which is, "We don't see the world as you don't see the world as it is, you see it as you are."
Yeah.
So like, if this is all a reflection of me, which it isn't just a reflection of me, but I am infusing the emotional relationship I have to anything and everything and everyone at all times. And so, like, if writing is a fucked up process, then there is something fucked up in me, and I may not be able to unfuck it myself. I just have to live through it. What I was proud of in that time was that I kept making words appear, even though I didn't like them and I didn't like how it felt.
Yeah,
Like if I don't type the end, it doesn't count, dude. Let me tell you that right now.
for sure.
When I start a script, the date and the time that I started, and then when I get to the end, no matter when that is, date and time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. And I guess the other part of that is just not paying attention to what people are looking for, what they want, what's happening now. Like, is it going to be streaming? Is it going to be theatrical? I just can't. I just can't. I need my thoughts. I don't know where my thoughts come from. I don't know where they come from, and I need them. So I got to dial everything down around me to the extent that's possible and sane.